Well, RBC economists are warning that Canada is heading towards a recession.
A new report from RBC says soaring food and energy prices, rising interest rates, and ongoing labor shortages will push Canada into a moderate recession next year. It says consumer spending that accelerated following the end of the pandemic lockdowns will slow as higher inflation, interest rates, and unemployment hit households.
Okay, so let's talk about this. RBC senior economist Nathan Jansen joined us live here. Not necessarily the news everybody wants to hear as we're in these uncertain economic times, Nathan, but it is a reality check. How concerned do you think the average Canadian needs to be about this impending recession you're calling for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember, where we're starting from, which is labor markets are exceptionally strong. The unemployment rate is exceptionally low, and the issue with that is, with the economy running too hot to be sustainable in the long run, that's feeding into higher inflation rates and cutting into household purchasing power. So, kind of the strength in the economy itself is becoming counterproductive at this point. So, the result is, central banks, need to step in with higher interest rates explicitly to cool off consumer demand. But that means, a couple of things. One is, we expect, a quote unquote, recession, which is defined as activity not being as strong as it was earlier on. But since we're starting from a very high level, the increase in the unemployment rate, that we expect is not, as large as what we've seen in prior economic downturns. We have the unemployment rate peaking, more than 2 percentage points below the peak in the 08-09 financial crisis, for example. And also central banks, know how know what they need to do to get the unemployment rate back down to a more long-run normal level once inflation pressures are under control. And they do that by cutting rates again. And so we do expect that the unemployment rate will rise into next year. That's our view, but that weakness won't take a lot of time to reverse into 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and Nathan, we're really seeing what the Bank of Canada is doing, which is, hurting the economy in order to help it. How long will this moderate recession last in 2023?
Yeah, I mean that's I think the first point is we're not expecting it this year. There's still a lot of momentum in household demand as we're recovering from the pandemic, and some strength in the commodities sector that we think will keep growth positive for the rest of this year. And the pullback that we're expecting is in GDP, the level of GDP. So you get negative quarter-over-quarter GDP growth is in the middle of 2023 and lasts for a couple of quarters. So it's enough, along with we have slower growth before that, before you get into outright contraction. So the weakness is certainly enough in our view to push the unemployment rate, still significantly higher. But we are, our view is that it'll be a fairly short, downturn next year. And again, fairly small relative to historical downturns.
Nathan, so much of the concern in the Canadian market is, people who have mortgages and borrowing rates, et cetera. And if you're looking at, variable rates right now, it looks like the central bank's likely going to bump the prime rate up by at least, 75 basis points coming up. How many more increase do you expect to see, and how concerned should people with variable rate mortgages be kind of right about now?
Yeah, I mean, we do expect the Bank of Canada is going to hike by 75 basis points in July. That would still, take the level of the overnight rate up to just 2.25%, which is still historically pretty low. So we do expect, more hikes to come. We have another 100 basis points over the next couple of meetings to get up to 3.25% overnight rate. So that will flow through the household borrowing costs. Some variable mortgage rate payments reset immediately, effectively, once the Bank of Canada changes interest rates. But for a lot of other, mortgage holders, it takes time. A lot of mortgages are fixed rate. They only, reset when you need to renew. So that's another reason why we expect the impact on household purchasing power to be delayed and see more of an impact into 2023 than we expect to see near term. But certainly, still room for rates to go significantly higher from where they are right now.
Nathan, I'm curious to know, is this kind of the natural ebb and flow of the economic, life cycle? It goes from inflation to a recession. Is that how it usually works? And how can people prepare for this?
I don't know. I don't know if the natural ebb and flow. We are in pretty unprecedented economic times. I mean, some of this is still fallout from the pandemic. We had, a massive economic contraction, but also massive government support programs that propped up household spending. So you had, coming out of the pandemic, households have a lot of purchasing power, and it's chasing just a limited amount of supply. So we're seeing, kind of an unprecedented also ramp up in inflation pressures. So there's not a lot that's, I think, normal about this economic cycle. But I think there is an argument, if we were to have started in March 2020, and done nothing in terms of economic support in terms of supporting the economy through the pandemic, that would have been a very severe and long-lasting economic downturn. I think if you really step back and think about the full economic cycle, if we get a relatively moderate economic downturn next year, as we expect, or even if we get that, if you look over the full cycle, maybe that was a reasonable trade to make. So it's not, I think, not entirely a doom and gloom story. Part of this is just we're coming out of the pandemic extremely in an extremely strong spot, just too strong to be sustained. So.
Right. Yep, needs to be cooled. Okay, RBC senior economist Nathan Jansen, appreciate your time. Thanks.